Stress. It's a word we all know too well, isn't it? It creeps into our lives like an unseen shadow, silent but ever present, ready to disturb our peace and clarity at any moment. We often point fingers at the outside world, the job we dread, the strained relationships, the never-ending responsibilities pressing in on all sides. But what if the real cause isn't out there at all? What if stress isn't something the world throws at us, but something we unknowingly cultivate within ourselves? Think about the last time you felt overwhelmed. Was it a sharp comment from a coworker? A traffic jam that made you late? A plan falling apart without warning? In those moments, didn't it feel like the world was spinning out of control, like everything was collapsing at once? But here's the question that changes everything. What if your peace doesn't depend on fixing the chaos around you, but on mastering the thoughts within you? That's exactly what the Stoics discovered. Men like Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca lived in times of crisis, war, betrayal, and immense responsibility. And yet they found a way to stand firm, to stay centered, despite the storm surrounding them. Not because life was easier back then, but because they chose to respond with wisdom instead of fear. They chose to strengthen their minds, rather than attempt to soften the world. In this video, we're going to reclaim that same strength. Together, we'll explore the Stoic mindset that frees you from the grip of stress and shows you how to find lasting peace, no matter how unpredictable or chaotic life gets. You already have the power. Now it's time to use it. Number 1. The reality of stress. It's not the outside world, it's inside you. Stress isn't what you think it is. Most of us walk through life assuming it's the world that's doing this to us. The deadlines, the arguments, the unpredictability of people, the economy, our health, or our finances. It all feels like pressure from the outside that keeps pushing inward. But pause for a moment and really think about this. When was the last time you were overwhelmed? Was it that intense conversation with a friend or loved one? Maybe a task at work spiraled out of control, or someone's careless words left a deeper mark than they should have. Whatever it was, you probably felt like the problem was out there. You probably told yourself, if only this hadn't happened, I'd feel better. But here's the truth we often don't want to admit. Stress isn't caused by what happens to us. It's caused by how we interpret what happens to us. Let's take that further. Imagine two people stuck in traffic. One is gripping the wheel, breathing heavily, filled with frustration, replaying every negative thought on loop. Why is this happening? I'm going to be late. This is ridiculous. The other person? Calm, maybe even enjoying the silence, using the time to think or breathe or listen to something peaceful. Same situation, same external event. Completely different internal experiences. So what changed? It wasn't the road, or the cars, or the delay. It was the internal dialogue. It was how each person chose to respond. And in that choice lies your greatest power. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor who ruled over one of the most powerful empires in history, faced betrayals, wars, plagues, and loss. Yet he famously wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this and you will find strength. Let that sink in. You don't need the world to be perfect to feel peace. You need to master your inner world, and then peace becomes possible, even in imperfection. That's not denial, that's power, that's clarity, that's control. It's tempting to believe that we are victims of our circumstances, that we're at the mercy of life's endless demands. But that belief only steals your strength. The moment you shift your mindset and begin to take ownership of your response, everything changes. You stop living in constant reactivity and start responding with awareness and intention. That's what the Stoics practiced daily. Not because they were emotionless, but because they understood that emotions, especially stress, can either serve you or sabotage you depending on whether you control them or let them control you. We've all had those moments when something small threw us completely off course. A rude comment from a stranger, a small mistake, or an unexpected inconvenience turned into a spiral of anxiety or anger. And yet, there have also been times when we've faced much bigger challenges, sickness, heartbreak, uncertainty, and somehow stayed composed. Why? Because the level of stress you feel isn't directly proportional to the size of the problem. It's proportional to how much control you believe you have over your mind. That's the Stoic way. To live from the inside out, not the outside in. When you truly grasp that, stress begins to lose its grip. You see it for what it is, not a monster to fear, but a messenger trying to get your attention. It's a signal that something in your internal world needs clarity, needs healing, needs attention. And once you shift your focus from blaming the external to mastering the internal, you reclaim your freedom. It's not about pretending the world isn't difficult. It's not about ignoring the weight you carry. The Stoics never taught avoidance. They taught transformation. They taught that you can stare life in the face and say, even if I can't change the situation, I can change how I carry it. I can change how I let it affect me. I can choose how I respond. That is where your peace begins. That is where your power lives. Now, this doesn't mean it's easy. The world will still test you. There will always be pressure, unpredictability, and challenge. But you are not here to be controlled by those things. You are here to develop the strength to stand above them. And that strength doesn't come from the world becoming softer. It comes from you becoming stronger. When you begin to take that radical ownership of your inner world, you start to recognize your triggers. You begin to notice how certain thoughts lead to tension in your chest, how certain beliefs lead to panic, how certain expectations fuel frustration. And with awareness comes the power to interrupt that cycle. You start to reprogram how you interpret life's events. You learn to say, this is happening, but I decide what it means to me. I decide what story I tell myself. The difference between peace and stress isn't in the world, it's in the way we think. And thinking is something we can train. Just like a muscle, the more you practice awareness, the more you gain control. The more you reflect, the more you release what doesn't serve you. The more you choose presence over panic, the more natural it becomes to stay calm in the storm. Here's the beautiful truth. You are not helpless. You are not a victim of stress. You are not at the mercy of life. You are a thinking, feeling, conscious being with the power to pause, to breathe, to reflect, and to respond. Stress only owns you if you let it. But once you start seeing it as an internal reaction instead of an external force, it becomes manageable. It becomes a mirror, revealing not your weakness but your untapped strength. So the next time stress rises in your chest, stop and ask yourself, is this really coming from out there? Or is it a thought, a fear, a belief inside me that I haven't yet examined? That question alone can change everything, because awareness is the beginning of wisdom, and wisdom is the foundation of peace. The reality of stress is simple yet profound. It doesn't live in the world, it lives in your response to the world. And the more you train your response, the more you'll discover that peace isn't something you have to chase. It's something you create moment by mastering your own mind. Number 2, radical responsibility. Stop waiting for life to calm down. Have you ever caught yourself saying, I just need things to settle down? Maybe it was during a busy season at work, a rough patch in a relationship, or when life threw one too many problems at you all at once. It's such a common thought. If everything would just calm down, then I could finally breathe. Then I could finally be at peace. But that idea, as comforting as it seems, is one of the greatest illusions we cling to. Because life, it rarely calms down. And even when it does, it doesn't stay that way for long. The world is constantly in motion, always shifting, always demanding, always pulling your attention in different directions. If you wait for the outside world to become peaceful before you allow yourself to feel peace, you could be waiting your entire life. This is why the Stoics taught something bold, something liberating, radical responsibility. It means you stop waiting. You stop hoping for the world to become easier, and instead you take full ownership of how you show up in every situation, no matter how chaotic, how uncertain, or how stressful it may be. Radical responsibility isn't about blaming yourself for everything that happens. It's about reclaiming the power to decide how you respond to what happens. You can't always choose the events that unfold, but you can always choose the story you tell yourself about them. That is where freedom begins. That is where peace starts to form, not in the silence of a perfect life, but in the clarity of a trained mind. We're taught from an early age to tie our emotional states to our environment. If people are kind, we're happy. If they're rude, we're upset. If the sun is shining, it's a good day. If it's raining, it's not. If work goes well, we feel accomplished. If it doesn't, we feel defeated. But that kind of life, living on emotional autopilot, is exhausting. You're handing over your peace to everyone and everything around you and hoping they take good care of it. But what if, instead of being at the mercy of your environment, you became the master of your internal state? What if you stopped saying, I'll be calm when things calm down, and instead said, I'll be calm because I choose to be, regardless of what's happening around me? That's what radical responsibility invites you to do, to become the one who decides, to become the one who leads, not just others, but yourself. Of course, this isn't easy. Taking responsibility for your emotional responses means facing some hard truths. It means recognizing the moments when you've blamed others for your stress, your anger, your anxiety. It means looking in the mirror and admitting that maybe, just maybe, the chaos inside you didn't come from outside events, but from unexamined thoughts, unmet expectations, and unchecked habits. That's a humbling realization. But it's also an empowering one. Because once you admit that you've been creating much of your own suffering, you also realize that you can stop. And let's be clear, this isn't about denying reality. It's not about pretending everything is fine when it's not. It's about learning to be powerful in the midst of difficulty. Life is going to challenge you. It's going to throw unexpected problems your way. It's going to stretch you, test you, and push your limits. But with radical responsibility, you're no longer waiting for things to get easier before you get better. You start getting better right now. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who was born into slavery and lived through immense hardship, said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." That isn't just a quote to remember, it's a way to live. He didn't say that because he lived a life of comfort. He said it because he knew firsthand how powerful the mind becomes when it stops blaming the world and starts leading itself. You see, every time you say, "I'm stressed because of my job," or "I'm overwhelmed because of my family," or "I'm angry because of what they did," you're giving your power away. You're saying, "I can't feel better until they change, until life becomes easier, until the storm passes." But storms are part of life. They always have been, and they always will be. So why not build a mindset that can stand firm in the storm? Why not train yourself to remain grounded even when the winds pick up and the skies grow dark? Radical responsibility means you stop outsourcing your peace. You stop waiting for perfect timing. You stop negotiating with the world for moments of calm. Instead, you plant your feet in the present and decide, this moment is mine, my response is mine, my peace is mine. And then you act accordingly. You breathe, you pause. You respond with wisdom instead of reflex. You choose strength instead of blame. You choose growth instead of victimhood. This mindset shift doesn't just help you manage stress. It transforms your entire life. Suddenly, the things that used to shake you lose their power. You stop being so reactive. You stop letting the smallest inconveniences throw you off course. You become resilient. You become stable. You become trustworthy, first to yourself, then to others. People around you begin to notice. They begin to trust your presence because your energy is no longer controlled by the environment. It's anchored within. And here's the unexpected gift. When you live this way, not only do you handle life's difficulties better, but you also begin to experience joy more deeply. Why? Because you're not waiting for joy to arrive. You're creating space for it. You're no longer so tangled in resistance and control that you miss the beauty of the moment. You start to notice more. You begin to feel more. You live more fully. So ask yourself, how long have you been waiting? Waiting for a sign, for the pressure to ease, for the people in your life to behave differently, for your circumstances to improve. How much longer are you willing to postpone your peace? And more importantly, what would happen if you stopped waiting? What if today you took full responsibility, not just for your actions, but for your reactions, your interpretations, your inner dialogue? What if you decided that no matter what happens around you, you'll respond with clarity, grace, and strength? Here's the truth. You don't have to wait for life to calm down. You don't need perfect circumstances to feel peace. You need a powerful mindset, a mindset built on discipline, awareness, and radical responsibility. The more you practice this, the more natural it becomes. Like any skill, emotional responsibility can be trained. And the more you train it, the more resilient you become. Stress doesn't disappear when life slows down. It disappears when you stop letting external chaos govern your inner world. That's when you become unstoppable. That's when you rise. That's when you step into the version of yourself you were always meant to be. Not fragile, not reactive, not waiting, but strong, steady, and deeply grounded in your own power. So today, begin again. Let this be the moment you stop blaming and start building. Stop waiting and start choosing. The world may never fully calm down, but you can. And in that calm, you will discover a strength most people spend their lives searching for, a strength that was within you all along. Number 3. Stoic practices to manage stress. Awareness and perspective. Have you ever been in a situation where everything felt overwhelming, where the pressure in your chest built up so fast you didn't even know where it came from? Maybe it was a moment at work, a conversation that triggered something deep inside, or just a wave of anxiety that hit you out of nowhere. We often think stress strikes like lightning, sudden, unpredictable, and beyond our control. But what if that isn't true? What if stress doesn't start with the world around you, but with your awareness or lack of it? One of the most powerful teachings of Stoicism is this: what we're not aware of will control us, and stress is the perfect example. It doesn't just appear out of thin air, it builds silently in the background of your thoughts. And if you're not paying attention by the time you notice it, it's already taken over. That's why awareness is the first step in managing stress. Before you can calm the storm, you have to see it coming. So what does Stoic awareness actually look like? It starts by observing your own mind, your thoughts, your assumptions, your reflexes. It means learning to pause and notice what's really happening inside you instead of blindly reacting to what's happening around you. The Stoics believe that simply becoming conscious of your inner dialogue gives you the space to choose a better response. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." And that's exactly what awareness helps you uncover. So often we're not reacting to reality, we're reacting to the story we've told ourselves about reality. And that story can be changed. Think about it. When stress begins to rise, your body responds long before your conscious mind catches up. Your heart rate increases, your breathing becomes shallow, your mind begins to race. If you're unaware of these signals, you let them take you down the path of automatic reactions. But if you notice them early, if you catch that first shallow breath, that first tightening in your chest, you create a window, a space. And in that space, you gain control. The Stoics trained themselves to be masters of that space. Instead of reacting impulsively, they asked, "Is this within my control?" That question is deceptively simple, but incredibly powerful. Because the moment you ask it, you separate yourself from the chaos. You begin to draw a line between what is yours to carry and what belongs to the world. And in that moment, your stress starts to dissolve. Not because the situation changes, but because your relationship to it does. That's the beauty of perspective. If awareness is the first tool, perspective is the second. Awareness shows you what's happening inside you. Perspective helps you understand what it means, and whether it even matters. Most of what causes us stress isn't the event itself, but our attachment to a particular outcome. We want things to go a certain way. We expect people to behave a certain way. And when they don't, we tense up. We resist. We fight reality. But the Stoics remind us that suffering lives in that resistance. And freedom lives in letting go. There's a powerful concept in Stoicism called the dichotomy of control. It's the understanding that some things are within our control, our thoughts, our actions, our values, and everything else is not: the weather, the economy, the behavior of others, the past, the future. All of it is outside our influence. Yet we waste so much energy trying to control the uncontrollable. And that wasted energy? That's stress. But when you shift your perspective, when you look at life through the lens of what's truly in your hands, you stop wasting your energy. You stop obsessing over things that were never yours to control in the first place. And you begin to reclaim your power. You begin to focus not on what's happening, but on how you're responding. That shift alone can take you from chaos to calm in seconds. Negative visualization is one of the more surprising but effective Stoic practices to develop that perspective. On the surface, it seems a bit harsh. Imagine the worst-case scenario. But this isn't about wallowing in fear. It's about building resilience. When you imagine the worst and come to terms with it, you stop fearing it. You prepare yourself mentally and emotionally. And ironically, that preparation brings peace. You stop clinging so tightly to things going a certain way. And in doing so, you free yourself from the stress of constant worry. Imagine this. You have a big presentation tomorrow. You're nervous. You want everything to go perfectly, but deep down you fear it won't. So you visualize it. What if the slides don't load? What if someone challenges your ideas? What if your voice shakes? And then you calmly walk yourself through those moments, not to scare yourself, but to remind yourself that you can handle them, that you'll survive, that your worth isn't tied to perfection, and suddenly the pressure eases. Not because the situation changed, but because you changed. That's the Stoic way. Not to control the world, but to control your inner world. To respond to life, not react to it. To use every challenge, every stressor as an opportunity to train your mind, build your character, and strengthen your calm. When you develop awareness, you begin to hear the whispers of your mind before they become screams. You catch the first signs of stress and ask, what am I believing right now that's creating this pressure? Maybe it's the thought, I have to get this perfect, or if this goes wrong, everything is ruined. But when you shine the light of awareness on those beliefs, they lose their grip. You start to replace them with thoughts that serve you. I will do my best and that is enough. Or, no matter what happens, I will learn and grow. And when you practice perspective, you zoom out. You see the bigger picture. You remind yourself that this moment, this stressful situation, is just one small part of a much larger story. Will it matter in 5 years? In 5 weeks? Sometimes perspective shows you that it's not worth the worry. Other times, it shows you that even if it does matter, you are strong enough to handle it. Either way, you gain power, you regain peace. The combination of awareness and perspective becomes your shield. Not a shield that blocks reality, but one that protects your inner clarity. With these two Stoic tools, you walk through life differently. You stop being dragged by your emotions, you stop being a prisoner of your stress. You start choosing your thoughts. You start leading your life with intention. And that's the goal of Stoicism. Not to become numb, but to become wise. Not to escape life's difficulties, but to meet them with courage, composure, and calm. So next time you feel stress rising, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what am I thinking right now? Is this something I can control? What's another way to look at this? Those questions are your entry point to a more peaceful, more powerful state of being. Stress will still visit you. That's part of being human. But with Stoic awareness and perspective, it won't control you anymore. It won't steal your energy, your joy, or your clarity. Instead, it will become something you understand. Something you face with confidence, something you grow through, not suffer from. Because in the end, you are not here to be shaken by life. You are here to stand grounded in it. And the more you practice this inner mastery, the more unshakable you become. Number 4. Focus on what you can control. Let go of the uncontrollable. We've all felt it, that rising frustration when things don't go the way we hoped. Maybe it was a plan that fell through, a person who didn't meet your expectations, or a goal that seemed just out of reach. In those moments, the natural impulse is to try harder to fix things, to grip tighter, to force outcomes into alignment. But here's the problem. Most of the time, what we're trying to control isn't really in our control, and that's where the suffering begins. The Stoics taught that the key to peace is learning to focus only on what you can control, and to let go of everything else. It sounds simple, but it's one of the most transformative shifts you can make in your entire life. Because once you fully understand this principle, and begin to live by it, you release yourself from the exhausting cycle of worry, frustration, and disappointment. You stop trying to bend the world to your will, and instead you begin to master the one thing you were always meant to govern, yourself. Let's get clear on what's actually in your control. You can't control the weather, the economy, or the behavior of other people. You can't control the past, and you certainly can't control the future. What you can control, completely and fully, are your thoughts, your actions, your effort, and your attitude. That's it. But that's also everything. Because when you bring all your energy into that small circle of control, you become incredibly powerful. Most people scatter their energy trying to change what they cannot change. They obsess over what others think of them. They agonize over how things might turn out. They replay conversations from years ago or try to predict what tomorrow will bring. But the Stoic mind doesn't chase after illusions. It stays rooted in the present and grounded in what can be shaped right now. This choice, this breath, this step forward. Think about a stressful situation in your life right now. Maybe it involves your career, a personal relationship, or your health. Now ask yourself honestly, what part of this is truly within my control? You might realize that much of the stress comes from trying to control things that were never yours to manage. You can't make someone understand you. You can't force success to arrive faster, but you can choose how you show up. You can choose to keep your word. You can choose to keep moving forward, no matter the outcome. There's a profound peace that comes when you stop chasing control over the external. It's not surrender, it's wisdom. It's the realization that letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means finally choosing to put your time and energy where it will actually make a difference. You stop being a prisoner of the uncontrollable. You become the architect of your own stability. Marcus Aurelius, emperor of Rome and one of the great Stoic thinkers, wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." In other words, even when life doesn't go as planned, even when obstacles appear, there is still something you can control: your response, your mindset, your discipline, your willingness to turn the challenge into a lesson. And that ability, that inner control, is where your strength is born. The more you practice focusing on what's within your power, the more freedom you feel. The chaos of the world doesn't disappear, but it no longer controls you. You start showing up differently. You don't panic when plans change. You don't collapse when people disappoint you. Instead, you adjust, you breathe, you realign your focus, and you keep moving forward with calm and purpose. Letting go of the uncontrollable doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care deeply about what matters most: your growth, your values, your inner peace. You stop measuring your success by external results and start measuring it by your consistency, your integrity, your courage to stay the course. And that shift changes everything. But here's the truth. This mindset takes practice. Because the world will constantly tempt you to chase control. You'll see people manipulating situations to protect their egos. You'll feel the urge to control how others perceive you. You'll want to fix everything, solve everything, and guarantee outcomes. But the more you resist this urge, the stronger you become. The Stoics used to say, "Don't suffer imagined troubles." Most of the stress we carry isn't even about what's happening. It's about what we fear might happen. We play out worst-case scenarios in our minds. We attach ourselves to outcomes that aren't promised. We grip tightly to expectations that were never realistic. But when you bring yourself back to what's truly in your control, all of that imagined stress begins to fade. So how do you start shifting into this mindset? Start by asking yourself throughout the day, is this in my control? If the answer is yes, act with purpose. If the answer is no, release it with grace. Remind yourself that peace isn't found in controlling everything. It's found in letting go of what doesn't belong to you and focusing completely on what does. This can be as simple as choosing how you respond to someone's criticism, instead of trying to change their opinion. It can be about showing up and doing your best work, even if the outcome is uncertain. It can be about accepting that some people will misunderstand you, and choosing not to carry the weight of their judgment. Over time, this becomes second nature. You start to notice when your thoughts drift toward control. You catch yourself before anxiety takes hold. You pause before reacting, and in those moments you return to your power. You return to your peace. There's also humility in this practice, because focusing on what you can control means accepting what you can't. It means trusting that life will unfold in its own way, and that your job isn't to force it, but to meet it with presence and strength. It means allowing life to surprise you, to test you, to stretch you, while holding fast to your principles and your focus. And most importantly, it means choosing how you show up, even when everything else is uncertain. That's what makes this practice so powerful. It gives you stability in an unstable world. It gives you clarity when others are lost in confusion. It gives you control, not over the world, but over yourself. And that is the highest form of power. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, frustrated, or anxious, ask yourself, what am I trying to control that isn't mine to control? What if I let that go? What would it feel like to stop fighting what I can't change and start focusing on what I can? That's the practice. That's the shift. And the more you live this way, the more peace you'll experience. Not because life gets easier, but because you get wiser. Remember, you can't control everything, but you can always control how you show up. And when you focus your energy on that, on your thoughts, your actions, your values, you create a life of inner strength, clarity, and peace. Not someday, not when things settle down, but right here, right now. Number 5, voluntary discomfort, strengthening your mind through challenge. When was the last time you willingly stepped into discomfort, not because you had to, but because you chose to? In our modern world, comfort is often seen as the ultimate goal. Everything around us, from technology to food to entertainment, caters to making life easier, faster, and more convenient. But here's what the Stoics knew, and what most people forget. Comfort may feel good in the moment, but it rarely builds strength. In fact, the more we insulate ourselves from discomfort, the more fragile we become. The Stoics believed in the power of voluntary discomfort, the practice of intentionally placing yourself in situations that challenge you, stretch you, and force you to grow. Why? Because stress and adversity are inevitable in life. And if you only experience comfort, you won't be prepared when life demands resilience. Voluntary discomfort is how you train your mind before the storm hits, so that when it does, you are not shaken, you are ready. Seneca, one of the great Stoic minds, recommended practicing poverty even when you are wealthy. He advised walking barefoot, eating plain food, and sleeping without luxury. Not to punish yourself, but to prove to your mind that you are stronger than your circumstances, that you can endure discomfort without fear, that you are not owned by your comforts, you are free from them. But what does this look like in real life? It doesn't mean you need to suffer needlessly or seek out pain. It means you choose discomfort in small, controlled ways, so that your mental muscles grow stronger. It could be as simple as taking a cold shower, fasting for a day, putting down your phone and sitting alone in silence, or waking up earlier than you want to. These actions may seem minor, but each time you push through that urge to retreat back into comfort, you send a message to your brain. I can handle this. Why is this so important? Because the world is unpredictable. You won't always get to choose when stress, pain, or loss comes your way. But you can choose to prepare yourself ahead of time. You can train your mind to stay calm under pressure, to adapt when things go wrong, and to stay grounded when everyone else is falling apart. That kind of inner stability doesn't come from wishful thinking. It comes from practice, from repetition, from voluntarily stepping into the fire and learning how to breathe through it. Voluntary discomfort also teaches you something essential. That discomfort is not the enemy. In fact, discomfort is a doorway. It's a teacher. It shows you who you are when things don't go your way. It reveals your patterns, your fears, your inner dialogue. And once you see those things clearly, you can begin to change them. You can grow through them. You can transform them into strength. Let's face it, most people avoid discomfort at all costs. They avoid difficult conversations. They avoid challenges that might lead to failure. They avoid silence, stillness, and solitude. But in doing so, they avoid growth. Because every meaningful breakthrough you'll ever have in life will be on the other side of discomfort. Think about it. Building a business, ending a toxic relationship, setting boundaries, improving your health. All of these require discomfort, but they also bring freedom. The Stoic path is not about avoiding pain. It's about using it. It's about leaning into it with open eyes and a calm mind, knowing that each step through discomfort is a step toward the person you were meant to become. When you voluntarily make yourself uncomfortable, you stop fearing adversity. You stop being afraid of things not going your way. You stop seeing difficulty as a problem and start seeing it as a path. This mindset creates a quiet confidence. You start to trust yourself in a deeper way. You know that even if life throws something unexpected at you, you'll be okay. Because you've already faced yourself. You've already tested your limits. You've already practiced being uncomfortable and survived. That kind of self-trust can't be faked. It has to be earned. And voluntary discomfort is how you earn it. Let's take a moment to look at what this could look like in your daily life. Suppose you wake up in the morning and you feel the urge to stay in bed. Your comfort is whispering, just 5 more minutes. But you choose instead to rise, not because you feel like it, but because you've made a promise to yourself to do hard things. That one decision sets the tone for your day. Or maybe you're tempted to avoid a difficult task at work, something you know will challenge you. But instead of procrastinating, you face it head on. Not because it's easy, but because you've learned to embrace discomfort as a tool for mastery. Or perhaps you notice your thoughts spiraling with anxiety. Instead of distracting yourself with entertainment or numbing yourself with food or scrolling, you sit with the discomfort. You breathe, you face your thoughts. You reclaim your peace not by avoiding the storm, but by standing in it. Each of these small decisions builds something powerful: mental toughness, emotional strength, spiritual clarity. And over time, these small acts compound. They build resilience. They build character. They shape a version of you that isn't swayed by every mood or derailed by every obstacle. You become consistent, grounded, centered, and that consistency becomes your superpower. There's also humility in this practice, because when you willingly step into discomfort, You acknowledge that you are still a student, that you are not done growing, that you are still becoming. And in that humility, you find strength, because you no longer need everything to go your way to feel strong. You feel strong because you've trained yourself to thrive even when they don't. Voluntary discomfort also teaches you gratitude. When you temporarily give up comfort, even in small ways, you begin to appreciate it more when it returns. You stop taking the warmth, the food, the rest, and the peace for granted. You become more present, more aware, more alive. And in that heightened awareness, you find joy and simplicity. So how do you start this practice? You don't need to make it extreme. Just make it intentional. Choose one area of your life where you've been leaning too much on comfort and challenge yourself to step outside of it. Maybe it's physical, like exercising when you don't feel like it. Maybe it's emotional, like having the conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's mental, like spending a full hour without your phone, just sitting, thinking, writing, being. The specifics don't matter. What matters is that you start. And once you start, don't stop. Keep showing up. Keep choosing the harder path, not to prove anything to anyone else, but to prove something to yourself. To remind yourself that you are not weak. You are not fragile. You are not defined by comfort. You are defined by your willingness to grow. So the next time you feel resistance, the next time discomfort appears and your first instinct is to pull away, pause. Ask yourself, what if this is exactly what I need? What if this challenge is the training ground for the next version of me? What if, instead of avoiding it, I walk into it with open eyes and a steady heart? That's the Stoic way. That's the warrior's path. And every step you take in discomfort is a step towards strength, peace, and personal freedom. The kind of freedom that can't be taken from you, because it lives inside you. You don't need to wait for life to test you. You can test yourself. And when you do, you discover something profound. The stress you once feared becomes the fire that forges you. The discomfort you avoided becomes the doorway to confidence. And the struggle you once saw as a curse becomes your greatest teacher. You are not here to live a life of comfort. You are here to live a life of courage. And courage is born in discomfort. So step into it, on purpose, and watch who you become. So, as we come to the end of this video, let's bring everything together. What you've just learned is more than a response to stress. It's a new way of living. The Stoics didn't just teach philosophy, they lived it, especially when life was at its most chaotic. And their wisdom still holds true. The root of peace isn't out there in the world. It's inside you. Stress may continue to show up. It's part of the human experience. But how you respond to it, that's within your control. Through awareness, you begin to notice the thoughts that create pressure. Through perspective, you separate what's important from what's not. By focusing only on what's truly within your power, you let go of frustration over things that were never yours to control. And when you voluntarily lean into discomfort, you prepare yourself to face life's hardest moments with strength, not fear. This is what it means to live with Stoic clarity. To stop blaming, to stop waiting, and to start choosing, deliberately, calmly, and courageously. So now the question is, what will you do with this knowledge? What's one thing, just one, you can start practicing today? Maybe it's shifting your perspective in a stressful moment. Maybe it's accepting a difficult situation instead of resisting it. Maybe it's waking up tomorrow with the intention to face whatever comes, knowing that your peace is yours to protect. Thank you for watching and reflecting deeply with me today. If this message helped you, please consider subscribing, sharing it with someone who needs it, and leaving a comment below. I'd love to hear how you personally deal with stress and which Stoic idea spoke to you most. And finally, remember this. The world may stay loud, uncertain, and unpredictable, but you don't have to. Strength isn't about avoiding stress. It's about standing firm in the middle of it. That power has always been within you. Now it's time to use it. Until next time, walk the path with courage and stay rooted in your peace.